it's just a basic functional movement that I think everybody should know how to do correctly, from picking up things off the floor, picking up your groceries, picking up your kiddos' toys, whatever it may be. So, as with the previous videos, I'm going to go over what the move should look like, common form errors and how to correct those. We're going to go over basic hip hinge. We're going to go over Romanian deadlifts, and then we're going to go over conventional deadlift in the form of a kettlebell deadlift. All right, so here we go. Now, your basic hip hinge is going to look like this. Say, I don't have any weight, any dumbbells, or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to set up with that posture that we've talked about. Roll those shoulders back and down, elbow pits forward, turning on my lats. Feet are hip width apart. Okay, I'm going to keep my knees loose, and I'm going to stick my butt to the back of the room. I'm going to keep my hands here just so you can kind of see. Stick that butt to the back of the room. I feel that tension in my hamstrings. Notice that I'm not necessarily parallel. Okay, tension in my hamstrings here. Come up and squeeze. Hinge and squeeze. If you think about what a door looks like on the hinge, you'll notice that I'm looking like the door here, coming back up. Hinge and up. Okay, that's your basic movement. Now, a couple of things that I often see. First up will be knees are knocked out or locked out. Okay, so we can still have that hinge, but then we've got super locked out knees. Okay, this is actually a variation of a deadlift that I don't do very often. For our purposes, for Romanian deadlift and just understanding what a hip hinge is, I want you to keep those knees loose. Okay, keep those knees nice and loose. Other things that I see will be we often don't get our butt back very far. So maybe we're kind of like this here, not really sure where our butt goes. Okay. Other things that I'll see, if you tuned into the pulling video, you'll notice that I talked about keeping the back nice and flat. So a lot of times what I'll see with the deadlift is we'll maybe start out good and then we'll kind of get into here. That's a nice rounded back, and that's going to put all the pressure in your lower back instead of in those hamstrings and glutes, which is what we want. Okay. Other things will be kind of like this, just kind of falling down or coming up from your deadlift, really hyperextending that back. Okay, so a couple of things to correct those issues. Okay, the first one with the locked out knees, it's just important to think about keeping your knees loose. Okay, just anytime you go into a deadlift, keep your knees loose. Slight little bend in those knees. Okay, your knees, if you notice, see what my knees look like now, and as I hinge back, you'll see my knees bend naturally just a little bit based on the movement of my hips. Okay. Another important thing, feet should be hip width apart, right here, okay? Pressing down. We'll talk about this in the squat video, but another thing to think about is screwing those legs into the ground, okay? So if you again watch the pulling video, you notice I talked about screwing those arms in. We want to think about that with this as well, because we want to activate those lats, keep that back flat. But we also want to screw our legs into the floor. So what I like to think about is my feet are already nailed into the floor, and I want to screw my legs in. Okay, so as I do that, I'm thinking about my butt scooping in. That's literally what I'm doing. Scoop it in, tuck it in, and it's tight. Okay, if you look really closely, you will see I got some stuff here, and as I scoop it in and tuck, all that little flab goes away. So we want to think about that. Okay, if you are struggling with just getting your butt back and keeping that back flat in general, a couple of things that you can do. You can take your trusty resistance band here. You can put it right in your hip crease, okay? And you can think about, you can also use, I've got a rod here. You can use something a little bit more sturdy if you like. But I put it right in my hip crease, and then I literally pull that band back. I think about keeping my back flat, pull that band back, and then press it up. Squeeze my hips at the top. Pull that band back, bring it up, squeeze at the top, okay? You can do this if you don't have a band or anything, just use your hands. Right in those hip creases, thumbs out, okay? Feet are hip width apart. I screw my arms in, hands go up my hip flexors, and I push my hips straight back, and then I squeeze it up. And as I'm coming up, I'm squeezing those glutes tight again, okay? So bring it back, squeeze it up. And if you just want to practice just getting this hip movement down, and you're not ready to focus on adding in your back, keeping it back flat, that's fine, okay? You can kind of break this up as you need to, but the goal is when I get those hips back and bring it up. And if you're not confident in this movement, just do it more often, okay? You should not feel it in your lower back. You should feel it in your glutes and your hamstrings, okay? We talk about butt taps a little bit. I love this movement for people who have not gotten the hip hinge pattern down yet, okay? So you're gonna imagine I've got a wall here behind me, okay? I've got my feet a couple inches forward from the wall, and if you want to, you can actually find the wall first so you know you're gonna tap it and then come back up, okay? But from here, you're thinking about keeping those knees loose, and you're thinking about, I just gotta get my butt to the back, squeeze it up. Get my butt to tap that wall, squeeze it up, okay? Make mental notes of what this move feels like so that you know when you go try it away from the wall if you're doing it correctly or not, okay? Let's talk about the upper body. Roll those shoulders back, screw those arms in a socket, elbow pits forward, oranges in your armpits, okay? Even though we are gonna feel the majority of the movement in our glutes and our hamstrings, okay? Our lats and our core need to support us as we go down, and as you lift heavier weights, you need those lats to be activated to help you bring the weight up and down instead of having it all be in your lower back, okay? So, if we kind of take everything we just talked about, feet are hip width apart, screw my legs in, okay? Shoulders back and down, screw my arms in, elbow pits are forward, oranges are in my armpits, and I'm gonna think about sticking my butt back, bring it up. Stick it back, bring it up and squeeze. And as I squeeze and I'm at the top, I'm thinking about being in a standing plank position. Okay, notice I'm not hyperextended back, I'm just here. Came up, squeeze my glutes really tight. Okay? If you're looking at it from the front, imagine I had something written on my shirt here, okay? And we want to think about keeping that chest lifted. So as I stop right here, you can still see what's written on my shirt, okay? If I let my shoulders round, can't see what's written on the shirt, okay? Another way, and I'm giving you all of these tips and just take what is helpful for you, because certain things are helpful for other people and certain things are not. So take whatever of these cues is helpful for you and apply it and continue to work on this move, okay? One hand is on your belly button. One hand is just on your shoulder. I'm just on your boobs right here. It's on my sports bra line. My thumbs are sticking out, okay? If I'm doing my hip hinge correctly, I will hinge and those thumbs will not meet each other. They will not touch. They're gonna stay in the exact same spot, okay? If I'm hinging and I'm letting my shoulders round, those thumbs are pretty close. I can let them touch right now, okay? So again, if hip hinge correctly, my thumbs are way too far apart to touch. If those shoulders round, palms and thumbs meet each other, okay? That's your base move. Hopefully we're good. I wish you could talk back to me. Hopefully we're good there. We're gonna go into Romanian deadlift, okay? It looks pretty much identical to that hip hinge, except we're adding on some weight, okay? So, you're gonna set up the exact same. This is what the move looks like, okay? For our purposes here, notice where my hand position is, notice where the weights go in relation to my legs, and kind of out in this space, okay? So, shoulders back and down, I'm set up. I'm gonna hinge. I feel that in my hamstrings right there. I come up and squeeze. I hinge, feel it right there, up and squeeze. So you'll notice here, looks almost identical to what we were just doing. We just got some weights added to the equation, okay? And I bring it up. A couple of things that I see is that because we've got weights here, we again lose integrity in the upper back. So maybe we'll see some of this. See how far apart these weights are from my legs, okay? Or maybe we'll go down and we'll just kind of round, and then we'll kind of come back up like this. Okay, just kind of letting those weights go wherever they want to. A couple of things are gonna happen with that. Lower back is gonna be screaming at you, okay? And again, we're missing the activation of our upper body here, okay? So what I want you to think about as you're setting up, your fingers here are gonna be touching your legs the entire way down, okay? So I've got my hand gripped around this weight. This part of my fingers are gonna be touching my legs the entire time. I'm gonna hinge and come back up. Okay, so my fingers never break contact with my quads. Never break contact, okay? That's gonna help you keep that weight close. That's gonna allow you to keep that straight line, because when we're working with barbells as well, we always want the path of the barbell to be straight, okay? So keep that in mind for your Romanian deadlift. If you are working from just a basic hip hinge, that butt tap, that Romanian deadlift without weight, and you want to start working on adding more weight, okay? You can always use one dumbbell here. You're gonna hold it here, and you're gonna let that dumbbell skim your legs the entire way down, okay? So same thing. The goal is to keep those weights as close to your legs as we can, okay? We don't want it all the way out here when your legs are back here, okay? Because again, I don't want to pressure on the back, okay? So that's going to be your Romanian deadlift. As you continue on in the program, we will eventually come to a single leg deadlift or a kickstand deadlift, and kind of progress that move a little bit more, but that's the basic foundation. You're going from those butt taps to that basic hip hinge to the Romanian deadlift, okay? Then we're going to toss in another move. It's coming next week. It is the kettlebell deadlift, okay? This move is going to mimic the conventional deadlift, which is done with a barbell, okay? So actually I'll do it from the side again. So we'll set this guy down. This movement, you're going to notice my knees are bending a little bit more. You're going to notice it mimics a squat a little bit more. And hopefully you'll notice that this move is pretty much the exact same move that you should be doing when you pick groceries up off the floor, okay? When you pick up something heavy to carry, okay? So I'm going to set up the kettlebell. I'm going to make sure that the kettlebell horn here is in line with the arches of my feet, okay? So it's right in the middle here. Again, with the kettlebell, we want that to be essentially a straight line as we're coming up and down, okay? So I'm going to set up properly here. I'm going to hinge my hips back, and notice that I have to go a little bit below parallel here. Because of that, I'm going to bend my knees a little bit more, okay? Notice the knee angle here as opposed to regular deadlift here. So my knees are bent, shoulders back and down. I'm going to press through my heels to press the floor away as I pull the kettlebell up, okay? Notice my back is flat here as well. Come up and squeeze. Notice I'm not hyperextending, I'm just keeping my back straight. And then I lower down. Bring it up, squeeze. Lower down. Bring it up. Lower it down, okay? If I'm showing you from this angle here, from the front, you will see kettlebells lined up with arches of my feet, shoulders back and down. Bring it here, up, and lower back down, okay? A couple of things that I see oftentimes. We will think of this movement as a squat. So we'll kind of come down here into a squat and then bring it up, okay? Or we will round down, okay? So maybe we'll be here, but we're rounded in that upper back. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to hurt my lower back, okay? But we can be really rounded. All the same principles that we've talked about so far in our other hip hinge movement are going to apply to this one as well, okay? So feet are hip width apart. Pressing in through my feet, screwing my hips in, pressing my ribs down to set my core, roll those shoulders back and down, turn those elbow pits forward. I'm tucking my chin, okay? This is another thing that I see that I didn't mention in the last one, okay? Is this. So even if you're doing the movement right, you've got that neck hyperextended, we're looking forward, and we got this business here, okay? We want to have a ball in between our chin so that we are neutral from here to here. It should be a straight line. Now, I struggle with keeping my head in line. So sometimes you'll see me, my neck is just a little bit forward, okay? Essentially on a straight line. So I set up, got my chin tucked. I'm gonna slide down. I can put my hands here as my guide, straight down, those knees bend, roll those shoulders back and down again if I need to, squeeze, and lower down, okay? This movement is gonna feel slightly different than a Romanian deadlift just because of the knee position, just because of where the dumbbell is seated, or the kettlebell is seated. All the same principles apply. Just to go over it one last time, so it's kind of sunk in, okay? Feet go hip width apart. You press and grip the floor with your feet. Squeeze those butt cheeks together, screw those legs into the floor, okay? Roll the shoulders back and down. Set your core by pressing your ribs down, okay? Elbow pits forward, oranges in my armpits. I got a ball under my chin, okay? From the side here, hands can go here as I'm learning, as I'm practicing. Hinge, feel it in my hamstrings, bring it up, okay? Try wherever you need to at your level, okay? If you're not ready for weighted movement for that Romanian deadlift with dumbbells, don't do it. Don't do it. If you need to go to the butt taps, that's where you're at, okay? I would much, much, much rather you start there and progress than do Romanian deadlift with weights and end up hurting your back and not be able to work out, okay? questions?